Just to start on with, taking on the Presley stage name, was that your choice and decision at the time?
No, it wasn't actually. It was, I think, a publicist who actually spoke to our manager, and then they decided to change my name, and it went into the New Musical Express, which was a big musical newspaper then. They told me that they had a story in there. I looked. I couldn't find it because they changed my name. And I phoned them up and said, can't find it. And he said, look again, it's column 3. And I finally went, oh no, you know. And I said, couldn't you have chosen a less famous name like, you know, Crosby or Sinatra? You know? And but the thing is, as soon as Wild Thing took off, it grew on everybody, and then it really had to grow on me. So, and it does. I use it just as much as I use my real name now.
Now, many claim the Troggs to be, I guess, the forerunners to what became punk music in the 70s. Is that something that sits okay with you?
Well, if you think that punk rock is like, you know, built from garage bands, street music, I suppose we were, because we used to routine in a garage and get ready for shows and things. And the rawness of the punks, I've always liked the rawness. Not so much, I wouldn't say never, but not so much the sort of absolute bash, bash, bash. I liked a bit of melody with it, you know. And I suppose if we came through that channel, yeah, I suppose you could say we were punks.
Were the band very image conscious at the time? Were you aware of projecting that bad boy type image?
Well, what we wanted, we looked for earthy names, like you had the Rolling Stones, you know. We wanted the sort of rock name. We were looking for earthy type names. Troglodyte means cave dweller, so we thought caves, rocks, rock, roll. You know, it's so stupid when you're young, but we were trying to look for that. We abbreviated Troglodyte and used Troggs, and it seemed to take off with Wild Thing. They suited each other.
Yeah. Can you remember the first time you heard Wild Thing?
Yes, I can. I was actually a bricklayer at the time, and I was finishing off a gable end, and the scaffold behind me, there was a painter painting off a couple of houses that had just finished, and he had a transistor radio on the scaffold, and all of a sudden Wild Thing come over, and he over the radio, and he shouted over to me. He said, hey, have you heard this? He said, if it didn't #1 next week, I'll eat my brush. I said, do you like it? He said, yeah. I didn't tell him who I was or that I was connected with it or anything. And after the record had finished, he said, from 44 up to #8 this week. And I went, whoa. I threw my trowel down. I walked down. There was a tea break just starting. And I said, Cher, I ate my toes. I'm off.
That was it.
Yep, that was it.
How about when the song was first brought to you? Could you see the hit potential of the song straight away?
It was, yes, I think I did, because it was sent by one of the guys in the office who gave it to our manager, said this would be good for your boys. He sent it down as a demo, and I listened to it, and all it had on was Chip Taylor playing acoustic guitar and singing. I thought, if this was done as a band, with aggression, I thought this could be it, because all the 40s rhythm and blues that we all used to listen to back then were just done with guitars and a vocal. And I thought this sounded, really good if we could master it, get it. Chris, our lead guitarist, said, it's only got 3 chords, because he'd studied classical guitar for 8 years, and all of a sudden he's confronted with, I'm saying it's going to be big if we can get it right, and it's only 3 chords to him. He said, okay, we all had a go at it, and the rest is history, actually.
I believe you weren't all that keen on the lyrics originally.
No, I didn't mind the lyrics. It was just that I think it was my wife that heard it and cried. She said, this will never be a hit. Of course, she's been eating her words ever since.
Now, you were elevated to stardom quite quickly there. Looking back now, how prepared do you think you were for such sudden notoriety at a young age?
Well, I first walked out on a stage when I was about 13, and I sung Unchained Melody, and it was on a carnival night, you know, they were looking for people to get up, and I did. I loved the reaction of that, and then it seemed to die away until I was about 15. I picked up an acoustic, went all through the skiffle sort of music, and I thought, I kind of like that. But then I got older and older, and then somebody said, who worked with me, who was a good guitarist, said, let's get a band together. And I said, no. And I said, no for about 3 months, and all of a sudden he said, well, look, please. And I said, oh, well, all right, you know, but I'm not going to buy a bass. I said, just loan, you know, let's borrow one, you know. So I did, and then the guy wanted it back just when I was getting pretty good. So all of a sudden I had to go up to London. Of course, when you go and you buy gear, you don't just buy a guitar, you buy the amps and the amplifiers and everything to go with it, and then you're locked in. And we had to do shows to pay for the gear, you know, and it just worked out like that. And yeah, it was quite exciting, really. Wondering whether we'd ever, you know, pay for it and get our own gear, you know.
Was there any pressure put on the band to repeat the success of Wild Thing? Did you feel your later singles being held up for comparison against?
We were lucky in as much that when we did Wild Thing, I'd already written With a Girl Like You, which was our follow-up. And technically, in England, Wild Thing didn't actually make #1 because they used to do the charts in 2 papers. And then suddenly they changed to 4 papers. So 2 papers would do it one week, and 2 papers, music papers, would do it the next. And that's how they told the chart. Well, we were one in both, but on opposite weeks. When it was #2 in one, and when it was #2 in the other, when they changed, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was lucky that I'd written With a Girl Like You, and they took it as a follow-up, and all of a sudden that was #1. So I thought, you know, this is great, you know, here we go. But it was very difficult to keep going. I mean, we had I Can't Control Myself, which was #2 in the chart. Reach Out and I'll Be There picked it to #1 and made it stay there at #2. It was a difficult time because there was a lot of acts. I mean, you were up against the Beatles, the Stones, the Kinks, you name it.
Yeah.
All there, you know.
It was a very competitive time, wasn't it?
Oh, very. But I think we did fairly well just to keep in there, you know.
Used in many advertising campaigns over the years. Have you encountered criticism for allowing that to happen?
I don't mind. I mean, I quite enjoy it. I mean, there was one that they did in, you know, the Swedes are really near the knuckle on everything they do, and they had an advert there where a girl is stripping off her clothes, and just as it gets to the nitty-gritty, the film breaks, and it says, you should be insured by so-and-so, you know. So they, you know, it's just, and then burger bars, isn't it, or milk bars or something, I don't know. It's been used by everything. I mean, even that was all around. It's starting, you know, they used it for Gap, for the jeans, clothes, and everything. Yeah, and they pay very lucrative money. It's very good, you know.
Now, a lot of bands from the 60s have tales to tell of being ripped off financially by management and record companies. Was that a case with you guys as well? You know, we're still trying to find out. I mean, they were. You've got a tendency when you're young, and your managers are young. I mean, I only discovered that Larry Page was the same age as me about, 10 years ago. You think that they're older, and you think, well, they're wise, they know what they're doing, but not. They don't necessarily know what they're doing. They're just lucky at having the right thing at the right time, you know. So what you put down to ripping you off might just be stupid the way they handled it, you know. Yeah, just bad management.
There was like 2. Wild Thing went out with a B-side from home on its flip side, over to America. Also, that went out was Wild Thing with A Girl Like You on the B-side. As soon as the Americans knew they had a #1 on the back, they turned it over and it stopped the sales. It was crazy the things that they do. It was just wrongdoings.
Now, you had some censorship problems in your time too, with songs being banned from radio airplay. Was that a great hindrance at all to your career?
Well, it was like I can't control myself. I listened to the King saying, about fashion. He's a dedicated follower of fashion. I turned that round and made it a bit more raw, but said, your slacks are low and your hips are showing, meaning that it was hipster, because that was all the rage in those times. It is now, actually.
It's come back, yeah. Yeah, but it was all hipster, stuff. And I turned it round and put that lyric in, and they said, oh, and all the dirty minds then pricked their ears up and said, her slacks are low and her hips are showing, he can't control himself. What is this, So I think it was probably perhaps a little bit before its time. Now, if you get banned or anything, it goes to number one straight away, doesn't it? In America, they took it out of the chart. I think they did over in Australia too. I can't control myself, did they?
I honestly can't recall, but it wouldn't surprise me.
No, but I know they were sort of always moan, weren't they?
We were pretty conservative down here in those days, so it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Oh, yes.
Now, the band didn't get to America until later on in your time. Why was that?
I think it was the management. Again, he used to own the Kinks, manage the Kinks, and he never did too well with them to begin with out there. And the money people out there, which were mostly mafia, sort of did strange deals, and I think they probably ripped him off a bit, and he thought, right, until I get it right, I'm not going to let the Troggs go. And he got it right, but about 2 years in, I think, we went out with Herman's Hermits, who were big. We started a big tour out there with them. They were huge at the time with, what's the singer's name? Got it.
Peter Noon. Do you think that delay in getting to America may have held back international success for you?
Well, I mean, we had our number one out there, and some of the other ones were banned, as I say, which sort of stunted the growth of the Troggs out in America, and we had to wait really then until Love Is All Around hit before we had a big success again, So, yeah, I think it may have, howled it about a bit, messed it up a bit, but I don't mind really, because America is a huge country. Although you can make a lot of money out in America because it's town after town after state after state, you could also kill yourself, trying to cover it. Whereas at least Australia, there's no one barely lives in the middle of Australia, and you just do the coastal regions and back home,
That's true. Now, tell us about the notorious Troggs tapes that emerged in later years. Do you vividly remember those sessions that are represented on those tapes?
Well, it's not those sessions. What happened was we were coming to the end of a contract with our record company, our everything, the music side of it, was sort of non-existent. But they discovered that we still owed them 2 songs. And they phoned me like on the Friday to say, we booked the studio on Monday, come in and finish your contract by doing 2 songs. Well, we weren't ready. Normally we'd go in a garage, as I said, and we'd go over it, and all the arguments would come out in the garage, and you'd be ready then to go in the studio and do it. Mm-hmm. And it never used to take long. Believe me, I mean, the longest we were in the studio in those days was 2.5 hours doing an album. That's pretty damn quick. So, we went in there, and I had embryos of ideas in my head. And, of course, when we started to get at it, all the arguments that normally come out in the garage came out in the studio. And they knew they weren't going to get anything, so they just left the tape running. But we heard it about 6 months later. We'd just come out of another studio, went in for a drink, and this guy said, "You're the Troggs, aren't you? I've got a record of yours," and played it. And we were annoyed for about 10 minutes, but we didn't stop laughing. So in the end, we just said, we could have probably sued them, but we said, it's a bit of fun.
So who was...
if a new group now goes into a studio and they've got nerves and that, and they're very nervous, they normally play it to a new group and say, you're nervous? Listen to the Troggs.
So things never really got that heated in the studio. It was normally, that was all out of the system by the time you got to recording.
Oh, yeah.
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 Who was responsible for getting those tapes out into the public arena? Did you find out who the culprit was?
Well, it had to be the guy that was doing it. It must have been Elton John's lot, because they all sort of left at the same time. And I know that one of his guys that recorded him was actually recording it, because he came out through the same publisher as we did, and that's where we were recording, in the publisher's studio. And it isn't like a normal studio where you look through the glass and you can see the artist trying to do it. And it was a corridor. And it was a cheap old studio, really, for Dick James. I mean, it was a huge company, but this stupid studio. And you used to have to come out of one door and you'd hear dum 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 dum, dum dum dum. You pranny. And then dum 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 back into the studio, you know. It was so funny. But no, I mean, you know, someone got it out, someone did it.
Now, do you remember sensing a time when success was starting to subside for the band and the music around you was changing? Did you feel the end coming?
I think the 80s were probably the worst time for the Troggs, the early 80s, because it sort of, I don't know, I mean, around the world it was okay, but England was changing, and that's your sort of bread and butter money. A lot of, in the late 70s, early 80s, you had a lot of the working men's clubs, you know, that did it, you know, where you'd get introduced on stage as the Frogs, you know, because they hadn't read the contract properly or something, you know. It's such a weird era. But I think when the DJ started with the sort of like the boy bands, I suppose, the early sort of disco type of stuff, that was becoming sort of mechanical, very mechanical. And it also stayed that way for a long time, and most of the music through the 80s and 90s was very mechanical. And it's not until just recently that people want to hear live music again.
Yeah.
And there's not many there that now play it. You've got the boy bands that aren't actually bands at all. They just jump around like the Bachelors used to, you know.
Yep.
So it's a strange old market at the moment, but it is changing. But then let it change. I'm of an age now where it's going to do what it likes. I'm not going to set the world alight, I don't think, you know.
Now, away from music, you've had a bit of acting experience over the years as well. How does that compare for you to playing music to an audience?
I would really like to be on the other side of the camera. I don't really now like to be in front of it. I did one or two little things, you know, that were asked of me, and I thought, yeah, it'd be interesting to find out what it's like. And I've done it okay. And I just recently was in a film. It hasn't done anything yet. It's got an award, but it hasn't done anything. It's not out. A Place to Stay, and that was all about, you know, the crop circles and everything that come up in England. So yeah, I would sooner, and I have written a screenplay now that is ready for probably America, because I don't think we've got the ability in England to get it all together. But I would love to do it through English people, but I don't think it will be. And that's ready to go out now to America, so I would love to do that. And I've written a book, and it's a film, really, of the book. I think it's very interesting. I just hope other people do, you know.
Now, the Troggs had a link with REM there in the early 90s.
That's right.
Yeah, how did all that come together?
Well, we were thinking about an album, and our manager, we went back with Larry Page just to see if there was any old magic there, and there was a bit there. And in the meantime, we discovered that REM used to play a lot of Trogg songs before they made it. So he thought it may be a good idea to just phone him and see if they, you know, would work with us for the name and everything, you know, to put a little bit of zap back into it, whatever. So he rang them, and they said, yeah, you know, love to. So a couple of us went over there and went into their studio, and it was great. I mean, when we met, we sort of walked round one another going, "Cool," in awe of one another, you know, as we walked round. And when it all settled down, it was great because Peter Holzapfel, he's like the fifth member of REM.
Yep.
Just a silent one there who does a lot right. And he did a couple of tracks for Athens Andover, which it was called. And they were damn good tracks. I think we should have come out with Nowhere Road, actually, but we came out with another one that I'd written. I don't know why, because the other one I think now was stronger, you know. But it would have been nice to run a single off of there and see what happened, you know.
Now, of course, the
Great
Troggs...
guys to work with.
They were?
Yeah, great guys to work with.
The Troggs are still, of course, a working unit today. What's the extent of your live performing these days?
Well, we're doing a tour of England, which starts on the 7th of November and finishes around the 9th of December. We're doing one or two German gigs in between that. We go out to Belgium every now and then. It's still happening, you know, it's still going along. But we like to more or less choose what we're going to do now, because the older you get, you don't want it, you know, too vicious on you, like traveling and everything. Shows are easy, but it's the getting there that always takes the toll, you know.
Yeah. If you could snap your fingers and be there in an instant, that'd make all the difference, eh?
Man, we should be doing that by now. We shouldn't be using cars and planes and everything like that. We should be able to do that now. Yeah, that would be nice. Just set your watch and you're on stage.
Yeah. The crowds that are coming to see you, are they a good mix of old fans and young fans as well?
Yeah, they are. I mean, I always, I think the first, second number in, I say, hands up who are seeing the Troggs for the first time live on stage. About half go up, and they're all young. You know? Mm-hmm. They're all youngsters. The old ones keep their hands down. So we think, right, there's about half and half there, you know, which is great, because you get kids of 16 there, you know. It's don't know what it is. Something about the 60s, I think, that holds a bit of magic there, because it happens with all the other guys as well, you know, the other groups.
I think a lot of the Troggs material, the classic stuff from the 60s, has stood the test of time, probably better than some of your contemporaries of that era. I think
that's right. Yeah. I mean, excuse me, I had to cough. Love Is All Around did great with Wet, Wet, Wet. And also through the film Four Weddings and a Funeral, the same producer has just got a film coming out now, which is, what's it called? Love Actually. They use Love Is All Around to get in there, but they've changed the lyric to Christmas All Around.
Uh-huh.
And they're hoping for big things from it, evidently. Hello?
Are you still there, Reg?
Pardon?
You're still there. Oh, good.
Yeah,
and what's the lineup of the band now?
Pardon?
Who are the guys in the band with you now?
We have Chris Britton, who's a lead guitarist and was at the beginning. We have a new drummer. Well, I say new. He's been in there about 11 years, because Ronnie died about 11 years ago. And we have a bass player in there now who's been in about 20-odd years, 25 years, something like that. Whoa. Everyone wants as old as the other ones. Yeah.
Any fresh recording plans?
Chris and I. Pardon?
Any fresh recording plans in the wind there?
We did a couple of fresh recording ones. One for the football that was big a few years ago, and also a Christmas song. But the company that we did it with went bankrupt.
Oh, no.
It was coming out. So what we've done is put a couple of tracks. We did a live show and put the football one up front and the Christmas one at the back of the album. But that's about the nearest thing. And that was about a couple of years ago. As for recording again, I don't know. I mean, if there was a lot of people saying, "Oh, come on, you got to do this, you got to," yeah, probably we would, but I don't know. I love to see openings before I start, because it takes a lot of mind games, you know, to get at songs and that when you're doing an album. So it's you know, I love songs best when they come from the ether. You know, you just sort of, something happens and you feel a song and you do it. Love Is All Around only took about 20 minutes to write down. It was so quick, you know.
Is that right?
Most of the hits I find are. It's when you have to struggle for little songs to go on an album. They're more trouble than anything, you know. But the hits don't come so often, you see.
Yeah.
That's the difficulty.
And just to finish up, Reg, how would you like to see the Troggs best remembered?
Wow. I don't know. I think probably for giving the young something to be young about. Because I think Wild Thing is finished up like a young person's anthem. You know, it's like a national anthem for the young. And I do like that. I think everybody that picks up a guitar to begin with says, wow, you know, let's do Wild Thing, because it's only got 3 chords, you know.
Yeah.
It's the way that you do Wild Thing, though. I mean, the first band, there were several bands tried to do Wild Thing before we made it. One actually sang the song, like, Wild Thing, you make my heart sing, you make everything, you know. There's one way to do it, and that's with aggression, and I don't know.
Yeah.
But probably for that, and add in perhaps a little bit to music.
Sure. Oh, you certainly did that. Thanks a lot for your time, Reg. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Best of luck with everything.
See you over there sometime.
That'd be great. Yeah, we'd love to see you down here. Good luck with...
If there's anybody out there that's listening that wants to book us, try. I dare you. You can get us on 4 Corners.
Yep.
Vision.
Yeah, I'll certainly be giving you all...
You are, yeah.
I'll give all that information out over the air when we put this to air, yep, for sure.
Yeah, and if they can get a good tour together, we'll be over.
That'd be great. Good luck with your movie project too. Hope that all comes together for you.
Yeah, cheers.
Good on you, Reg. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye.